Please join me in watching a portion of an episode from a television show that was on in the early 1960s called My Favorite Martian, Season 1. Tim has discovered that his Uncle Martin, who is a Martian, has the ability to receive radio signals through his head. So Tim is about to wake up Uncle Martin so he can delight in using Uncle Martin as a receiver.
Come on, wake up! Wake up, you were snoring!
What?
Wake up, you're snoring!
Oh, I am?
Yeah, well, you're not now, because I woke you up. But before, when you were asleep, you were snoring.
Must be your Earth's atmosphere. A Martian never snores on Mars. Has something to do with your oxygen syndrome. I'm sorry.
Uncle Martin, look. Why don't you just raise your antennas?
What?
Well, remember last summer when you had a cold? Well, you used to sleep with your antennas extended because, well, you said it balanced your sinuses.
What's that got to do with now?
Well, you told me it was good for snoring. Now, if you could get your sinuses balanced, you wouldn't snore.
Are we really going to sit up? Did you really wake me up to discuss the passage of your Earth's oxygen through my Martian membrane?
If you just sleep with your antennas extended, you won't snore, and then we can both get some sleep. I mean, if I had antennas, I'd do the same thing for you.
All right, but please don't wake me again. I'm going to have to sleep very hard to make up for this interruption.
South Madison. 2 men, cash drawer and safe empty, 3 shots fired. Witnesses report red station wagon leaving neighborhood going west. Mass license plate. Proceed with caution. That is all.
Jim, what happened? Did you turn me on?
No.
Well, did you turn on my Me radio?
Yes, that was it. You see, I heard it, and I thought I'd come in and turn it off.
Oh, well, I must have scratched my ear and tuned in on a wavelength. A Martian has to be careful when he sleeps with his antennas out. You know, I remember one night I accidentally picked up Lawrence Welk. And instead of sleeping, I spent the whole night in bed dancing.
Okay, so you can imagine that's going to cause a little bit of trouble for Tim, and the whole show is going to be about the trouble that's caused by Tim understanding this privileged information. By the way, this might have been out at a time before people had access to police scanners, because in modern times you can buy a police scanner and pick up all the activities of police and fire, etc. Alright, so what am I getting at? Well, this is about the human skull as a receiver of frequencies. So I'm going to take you to my computer. And this is an abstract, a medical abstract. Please don't think I understand everything that's written. I'm only trying to make some points here and use the abstract just to make a central point. that the skull picks up vibration. The location on the skull of a bone conduction receiver and the lateralization of the sound impression. That's a lot of fancy words, and I'm not trying to promote that I'm a medical person and I understand all of it. It talks about frequencies, it talks about the bones, it talks about sound impression. Here's another article. Cellular telephones and effects on the brain. The head as an antenna and brain tissue as radio receiver. Now, you can go back to this episode here, I believe this is 1963. They were showing you. There's the abstract if you want to read it. Let's go to another. There's the human skull. Now, if you have vibration, almost anything can pick up vibration. And a speaker is just material that's sensitive to the vibration and translate the vibrations into sounds that you can comprehend. Now, what if the skull is hit with frequencies above or below the range of human hearing? Is the skull vibrating? Well, of course it is. So what am I suggesting? I'm suggesting that your head and my head, we're just like Uncle Martin. We can receive frequencies. Now, the frequencies could be above or below human hearing, which means you're not necessarily conscious of them, but they're coming into your skull. Now, the brain could possibly be interpreting those vibrations or frequencies. And you do not necessarily hear a voice like you hear my voice right now. But just possibly, the brain is now stimulated. And what do I mean? Well, the stimulation can be very pleasing, very pleasant, or very irritating or agitating. Thus, it creates a mood, an attitude, a force, a power within the individual that he or she is, in a sense, completely unaware of, because there was no audible voice. So I'm going to make another suggestion, and this is not necessarily fact, and I don't know for sure, but we're going to go back to the organization called Skull and Bones at Yale. And you notice that they use the skull and the bones. Now, could it be that indeed they discovered long time ago the use of frequencies and sound to control people? I believe in the mysteries of Solomon, the evil side of Solomon, there's literature to show that Solomon understood the usage of light and colors, and that's why the usage of light and colors is very important in the hoax lie system. So, is it possible that Skull and Bones society is really just saying we know one thing that controls people, and that is sound? Now, of course, they refer to them as like a death society and so forth. Of course, they're very secretive and all that. So I'm just trying to promote some thoughts to you that are floating around in my skull brain from the vibrations I've been feeling. Now back to what we folks would refer to in past the pirates on the sea. Did they really exist? It's possible that they're all hoaxes. But nevertheless, the flag for pirates, we usually see the skull and the crossbones. And that could be an indication of frequencies, crossing certain frequencies to get into your brain through the skull. Thus producing attitudes and moods, and even possibly specific control. Okay? So I'm going to take you to another spot. Whoop. Oh, this was about the auditory effect. Yeah. This is microwave auditory effect, whereby supposedly the usage of radar sending out electronic signals activated signals in the brain of people that worked around the radars. So you can read that and see what you think about all that. Microwave auditory effect. But the one I really want to direct you to, and I'm not going to play the information for you, I'm going to let you discover it on your own, and that is Anthony Sutton. Now, I do not believe this gentleman's a shill, because his written work is outstanding. In fact, he will show you in his written work that the Soviet Union, Russia, is just simply an offshoot of Western powers. He will show you with a paper trail that the only reason there was any power in Russia and Soviet Union is because it came from the Western powers, such as United States and England. In other words, the Soviet Union was never really an enemy because the Soviet Union was built up by England and the United States and other Western powers. Anthony Sutton's written work will demonstrate that to you. Now, the particular work I want to draw your attention to is what he calls psychotronic weapons. And again, I believe he cites the Soviet Union, and I think it was in the late 60s, whereby he will show they did great behavior modification with combined combining flashes of light with auditory. So entering through the two gates, the gate of the human eye through sight, and then the gate of the human eye through the ears. So by doing both, with specific light patterns and sound patterns, they were able to produce a lot of behavior modification. And he calls them psychotronic weapons. Now, he's definitely worth watching. He's definitely worth paying attention to. And again, I do not believe he was a shill. He worked at the Hoover Institute. And in this particular video and a few others, he's actually trying to tell the world about these things. But most likely because what he had to say was so far over people's heads that they would have dismissed him and they would have written him off as somewhat crazy or even too almost like science fiction. But you can check out Dr. Anthony Sutton. So back to the whole concept of what I was getting at with Tim and My Favorite Martian. They were showing you that everyone is like Uncle Martian, Uncle Martin. The human skull can receive frequencies. And they don't have to be audible in human hearing. Now you go ahead the next time you're out and about, look at your so-called cell phone towers. And take a look at how many maniacal devices are mounted on it. And ask yourself the question, is it possible that in every neighborhood, every town, every city, signals are being sent out that people are not aware of, and it's producing something in the population that's favorable to these controllers who wish to control us? I have some more things to say about this, and I'll hold off for the moment, but it has to do with what people considered a medical condition, and I now believe it was not a medical condition. They were actually privileged to understand some of this through their hearing, but they were diagnosed with a medical condition. So I'll try to do a video on that next, and please, just leave me a comment. That's all I'm asking for. I need to hear from you that you've watched it, and I don't necessarily look for, you know, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, but I do desire a little bit of feedback on the comment section. Thank you for watching.